Hey, what's up, comrades? It's time for another light novel series. Or something. So, I got this one. It's called Solo Leveling. And it's Korean. I'm very excited about that. As you may be familiar with me, if you've listened to my commentary about anything, you know I love the Japanese and now the Korean experience. The Koreans are really crushing it with multimedia, not going to lie. Like, Nikkei Goddess Victory is the best game that has come out all year. It came out last year. That I have played this year. And their other game, Shifts Up, Stellar Blade, looks fucking fantastic. Someday when I can just torrent it off the internet, I will play it on my PC. Needless to say, I have a whole batch of like these. It was like a light novel batch. Light novels are like novellas in long series that come out of Japan, but the Koreans are doing a lot of stuff like the Japanese. Like they got manhwa, which is kind of like a manga style, with kind of somewhat similar art style, sometimes a little different, episodic kind of stories. My understanding is they're really into the re-up or whatever, which is like you do something and then it goes back in time and you got to do it again kind of situation. I was watching somebody talk about it like that. I don't know that much about it, to be completely honest. Anyway, so this is like my first taste of like a novel series, novella series, or a light novel series, if however you want to phase it. I don't know what they would call it in Korea. Maybe they call it light novels there too. But it's called Solo Leveling, and it's by something. Anyway, so I'm super excited about it. So it gets started, and we get introduced to our main character, and I apologize. These names are Korean, and I have no experience. I took like years of Japanese study. I'm super weeb. I've been doing Japanese stuff forever. I did like Chinese with the army, like Korean. I don't know how the fuck stuff's supposed to sound. I'm not gonna lie. Like I am definitely not experienced with this whatsoever. So I'm gonna do my best. And if you understand Korean or you've read this book series before and you just want to hear me rant on about it, then I apologize because I'm gonna butcher it completely. So the main character is Jiwon, I think. Again, it's an audio, so I have no reference to even look at it, and I'm much more of a visual learner. Anyway, so Jiwon is an E-Rake adventurer, and he is known throughout the guild that he exists in as the worst adventurer ever, period. Now, this story thus far that I'm aware that I've gotten to like the first chapter and the prologue. So the story thus far seems to like they mention that like they are in Korea and that there is like the Earth, but that the difference is that there's these gates where dungeons appear and there's like monsters, and then people like their job is to go in there and they can get like these magical stones and they sell the magical stones for money, and sometimes there's treasure, and then people like work their way up, and that this is like a job or a hobby or like whatever it is. But that he is terrible. Every time he even fights like an E-rank monster, he gets injured. And it becomes like a point because there's a girl who's like a B-rank healer for the guild named Judy or Jui, something like that. I'm going to go with Judy for now. I think it's Jui, but I'll just go with Jui because that sounds more right. Because like at first I was like Judy, like American Judy. But I think it's Jui. It's because the person reading the audiobook clearly understands Korean because they're saying it with like a slight accent, which kind of makes it harder for me to understand because I have like, again, no reference to Korean stuff whatsoever. Anyway, so Jui, and they, throughout the first chapter, it's established that because he gets healed all the time, because they're always hanging out and always talking at the back of the guild, that she kind of has like a little crush on him. And at some point she kind of asks him on a date, which is adorbs. Anyway, so the reason this guy is involved with the guild is because he needs the health insurance. Instead of getting a real job, he's 24. And at some point, someone pulls out like a cell phone, and then no one talks about weapons, but I'm assuming they're using swords and stuff. But thus far, no one's really mentioned they could be using guns. They're called hunters in this world. Anyway, so we get kind of introduced to people. We get a little bit of the background of the world, how the guild works. You know, we get some point of views changes, very short, with a couple of their guilds. There's this Song guy who is a Sea-Rake adventurer. There's Pak who's doing it. He's like retired, but he's back because he's having another kid, so he needs the money. Stuff like that. And we spend most of the time just kind of getting introduced to Jui and Jinwa, yeah, Jin something. and their relationship, Jinhwa's like motivation for doing stuff, him just thinking about being in the guild, him thinking about being a hunter, him thinking about all this stuff. They clear the dungeon, and then they find, so everyone gathers up, they're doing this dungeon. It's like an E level dungeon, so it's like fine, it's just like extra money. There's just like D, E, and D monsters. Then they find like the secret dungeon, which actually has the boss. So then they have a vote about going in there because some people are kind of sketched out about it. It seems kind of like, I don't know, we don't know what's in there. It hasn't been ranked. It could be worse, but sometimes like a double dungeon is like a huge boost for all the people. It can be tons of treasure, super bosses, whatever. They find the entrance to the boss chamber, and it's these giant double doors, and people are still kind of sketched out. But they go in, and they're like, duh! And it's a giant, like, multi-stadium level size, like, chamber. And there's just, like, statues all over the place, including this statue that is referred to as big as the Statue of Liberty. So, again, it's like, this is like a Elseworld kind of situation, sitting on a throne. And then everyone's, like, super creeped out, and they're walking around. And eventually they find this, like, demon-looking statue that has this plaque on it. And Sun reads the plaque, and it's in like a runic language. Only hunters are allowed, not allowed, but only hunters can read because they're imbued with magic or something. Anyway, so they're looking at that, and as he's reading it, Judy grabs Jinhwa's arm and is like, "Hey, the big statue, the Statue of Liberty one is like looking at us," and he's like, "No, it's not, whatever." And he starts paying attention, and then he hears like the torches go out because they all came on automatically, and then he hears the door shut, and then everyone else is like, "Wait, what's going on?" And then one of the guys, something about on the tablet is like, you must believe in God, and you have to have faith in God, and you have to prove your faith. And then one of the guys like, "That's it, I'm out, fuck this," and he goes to like open the door, and he gets his head smashed in by one of the statues, and everyone's like, "Fuck!" And that's in the first chapter. Chapter 2 is pretty intense. It's all so after the guy got his head smashed in, everyone's freaking out, and some people start running around, and then the statue in the middle of the room, like its eyes turn red, and then it laser fucks all these guys, and everyone drops to the ground because Jinwoo, in his head, he's like figuring it out. He's like, "Wait, don't move!" And then some people don't, and some people do, and the people that move get fucking killed. And then he's like, "Everyone stay down to the ground, don't move." Son, who's like the leader, is like, "Hey, everyone listen to this motherfucker right now." And everyone's like, "Okay, we'll do it, I promise." Judy is just like all sad hippopotamus, like saying next to him. And there's some other female hunter who gets like the brunt end of like this writer's like bad times. Like she pisses herself and then she gets murked later. But right now, so they started at 16. They lost one. Or they started at 17. They lost one. They lost 5 more. And then this guy who's like a brawler who already signed like a contract with like a different guild, or a better guild, is like, "Fuck this, I'm gonna go." And he stands up and starts running, and he gets zapped, and he's dead. And then Jiwa is thinking about like the commandments, right? Because they read that thing with the demon statue, and I had all these things. They were like commandments, like do this, don't do that, yada yada yada. And so he puts it together. So the first commandment is to like worship God, and he's like, "I got it." It's like, everyone bow down and face the statue, and then once they all do, the statue like chills out with the eyes, and then the statue, like, everyone's like, "Oh, we did it," and they're hugging and stuff, and the statue stands up and starts stomping towards them, and they're like, "Oh fuck, we're dead again." And he's like, think, and he's like, "The next commandment is to worship God." And they're like, "I worship what? I don't know what to do there." And then and one of these dudes, he's like, "Oh, I'm Christian, I'm gonna go do it." So he goes and stands in front of the statue, and he sings like a song praising God and everything, and the statue stops for a minute, and then Jiwa's like, "This is a bad idea, this is not what needs to happen, like this is we got to play by like the rules." It's like he compares it to like a video game. So like this world that this this book exists in is like very confusing to me. Anyway, so he's like, "This is not going to go well," and it doesn't, because the statue smashes that guy, stomps him dead, and they start stomping on people, and everyone's running around freaking out and yelling, and people are getting smashed and swatted, and this is where the girl dies, the anonymous girl hunter, precious child. And then other people die, like the guy who joined up because he's having another kid. Like, fuck that kid. This guy's dead, and it's that. And then at that point, Jinhwa's like, "Wait a second, we have to interact, like we have to play within the rules of the puzzle of this room, and the only thing that moves is the statues around the room." So he looks and he's like, "Some of these statues have musical instruments, so everyone go stand by a musical instrument." And then they do, and that calms the beast down. Unfortunately for Jinhwa, when he was trying to get to a statue, because he was like the last one, because it was him and Judy, and then the statues only activate for one person at a time. So he drops Judy, and he's running across the room, and everyone's like safe with the statues that are playing music. And he runs to a statue he thought had a musical instrument, but it was a shield, and that shield fucked him up. And he's about to die, but he's able to like roll over to like a statue that's singing, right? And that saves his life, because the statue's like, "All right, we're good," and he goes to sit back down. Meanwhile, everyone's like crying and like holding him, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And he like finally realizes that his leg's been severed. I like the knee, I think, from when the statue with the shield like fucked him up, and he's like, oh, fuck me. And then there's like this holy diocese or something that starts coming up from the middle, and he's like, I know exactly what to do to solve the final part. So as the altar comes up, they got to figure out what to do next. And someone figures they got to sacrifice someone on the altar, right? Because it's a fucking altar. And it's pretty big, it sounds like. Anyway, so Kim comes over and he's like, hey, you got us into this mess, son. You got to get us out of this mess. So points the sword at the altar and is like, let's get going. And then someone's like, yeah, you're right. That's fair. It was my decision to come in here, so I'll do it. And then Jin feels really sad eponymous about it. He also doesn't feel like quite right about the whole situation. Anyway, Son gets kind of bullied up onto the altar, and then a light, like a red firelight, comes on, and nothing happens. And so then Jin's like, huh. So he summons these two other random bullshit hunters no one cares about to help him, since he lost his leg, to get up on the altar. And when all three of them get up there, three more lights show up. And so then he summons Judy and Kim, Mr. Kim, to come up too. And when they do, all six lights appear. And then a bunch of blue lights surround the area as well as the red lights. And then the doors open. And then the statues from around the whole area start closing in on them. And so after thinking about it for a little bit, Jinhua, or whatever, Jin, figures out that the blue lights are a timer, and that if they can just survive, because the commandment's something about showing your devotion or whatever, if they can just survive the statues for 30 minutes, then they will have successfully completed the mission. And he also realizes that when you look at the statues, they stop moving. So if everyone sits in like a circle and just stares out at the different statues, then they're going to do great. Unfortunately, one of the guys jets off, and then the other guy. And then there's four of them left, and so that's okay. So we got Kim, Judy, and Soon and Jin. And it's like, okay, cool. That's fine. The four of us can watch all the angles. And then Mr. Kim's like, hey, fuck you guys. And then he takes off. Ruh-roh. And so Son is like, hey man, I'm still willing to sacrifice myself because it's my fault. So you go with Judy and get out of here. And then Jin's like, okay, that sounds good, I guess. And then he looks over at Judy and he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. She's like barely, she is non-functional. She is like so stunned with trauma that she is just staring off blankly. And he's like, I can't carry her out of here, so you got to go, man. It's fine. I'll sacrifice myself. Oh, because every time someone goes through the door, it shuts a little bit. And so if they all try to go, the door is going to slam on them, or they're not going to be able to get out, or the statues will get them. Because they're like moving towards the center. Anyway, so Son picks up Judy and runs out with her. And so then Jin picks up Kim's sword, which he dropped, and is like, all right, I guess I'm going to go out fighting. Fuck this. We'll see what happens. So as he's getting... The statues come, and like one strikes at him, he blocks that, and then he gets stabbed in the back with a spear, and he's like, fuck, guess I'm dead. And then he hears this voice in his head, and all of a sudden it's like, the voice is like, do you want to be a player? And he's like, what the fuck? And it's like, do you want to be a player? You have 5 seconds to respond. He's like, yeah, I guess so. And then he like passes out. Because he doesn't want to die. He wakes up 3 days later and his whole body's healed. He's got his leg back and everything. And he's in a hospital. And there are these two special agent hunters, and they're there to test him to see if he was reawakened. So being reawakened, so you awaken as a hunter, and then you can like fight the monsters or the magical creatures. The lore in this is very specific. So they're not monsters, and it's important that they're not monsters because something else comes up that is like monsters. These are, I think they're magical creatures. Or something like that. Anyway, so once you become a hunter, then you can officially fight them. Even though he's the weakest hunter in the whole world at E rank, whatever, he's still able to fight them. And then when you become awakened, you get your rating, and the rating doesn't change, right? It's kind of like a personality. But occasionally, on very rare instances, people can reawaken. And when they reawaken, they usually awaken as like being much more powerful. So they're like, oh, that must be what happened because this guy survived and his leg's back and shit. And so we'll see. So they give him like an orb and have him touch it. And it's like, nope, E rank, piece of shit, like 10 mana points, when even like a normal E rank would have 100 mana points. Like, oh, okay, whatever, bye. At that point, he looks up and he sees some messages in the sky, and he's like, "The fuck?" And then his sister shows up, and this is the sister. He like the part of the reason his whole background of that, doing this hunter thing and not something more sensible is that his mom got sick, so his dad is dead. or we haven't really talked about the dad, but the dad's, I'm assuming he's dead or disappeared or something. Anyway, so then the mom got sick a few years ago, and so he had to become the breadwinner, and so he's been doing that through the Hunter stuff and other things, and he's working to get his sister into college because she's very dedicated to being like a doctor, and there's a whole thing about her, like when the mom got sick, before the mom got sick, she would just play video games all the time, but now she's like very dedicated. And because of this, he's like, hey, so tell me more about like accessing menus in video games. And she's like, what, you playing video games now? And he's like, no, I'm just curious. And she's like, well, you gotta like do something, blah, blah. You gotta like press the command or whatever. And he's like, what command do you normally use? And she's like, open. And he's like, okay, cool. And then she's like, all right, gotta go. See you later, bro. Love you. And then so she heads out and he's like, open menu. Because that's like the writing and the thing is like a menu or whatever. And then it opens and he sees like, he has like items and like quests and all this stuff. And the quest is like do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. It's like One Punch Man, and run like a kilometer or 10 kilometers or something, which is like 3 miles, 5 miles, something like that. I don't know. I'm on the King system. So he does some push-ups, and it like the number goes up, and he's like, okay, whatever. And then at some point, the day goes over to the next day, and it's like, you have failed the quest, time for punishment. And he's like, punishment? And then he like gets thrown into like this desert world with like worms, and he has to run away from them. And that goes on for like 4 hours. And then he gets kicked back out to the hospital. And it's like, all right, today's quest is to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, whatever. If you don't do it, you'll be punished. And he's like, the fuck? He's like, I need to sleep first. And then he passes out. So he decides he's gonna, start doing these quests. And when he does them, he gets rewards. He gets little packages with like stuff that he needs. Like one of the packages has like a ballpoint pen. And then later in that day, he needs to sign something. And he's like, oh, I have a ballpoint pen. And we find out he has like this inventory that he can access. It's like being a role-playing game, like a Japanese role-playing game. Like it's all magical. It's like, where's your inventory? I just open the inventory menu and there it is. And it appears in my head. And he also gets ability points. So he has, hold on, how many stats? He has strength, agility, intelligence, perception, and I think stamina. So 5. He has 5. And they're all at 10. And so he takes those 3 points and he's like, well, I want to be stronger. So he puts all 3 of them into strength. And he's like, that didn't really do anything. And he's lifting stuff up and he's like, I feel a little bit stronger, but I don't know. And then he realizes he completed a quest the day before. And so he opens that, gets more, and he realizes, oh, I am getting stronger by putting points in. So I'm going to put all my points in strength because that makes the most sense. We kind of switch over to one of the nurses. At some point, she's like, wow, I can't believe he grew his whole leg back. And at some point, he like cuts himself on something and then heals like immediately. And she's like, this guy must be like an S-class reawakened hunter. I want to get on his good side. And so she gives him his number, or she gets his number, and he's like, which is, she's cute. So he's like, okay, that's cool and stuff. But it doesn't really ever come up again. Like later on, she like texts him and he like doesn't respond. And then I don't know if it ever comes up again after that. So it's kind of it's silly and kind of pointless to even have this like be part of that. But I guess it's there. So he's trying to look up information on like this player thing, and he can't find anything. Like he mentions like, hey, has anyone else like awoken as a hunter? And it's like a video game, and everyone's like, oh, you're dumb motherfucker, you're an idiot, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff. And he's like, all right, whatever. So he just starts. He heads home. No, he's in the hospital just chilling, and the association like that is running like the low level hunters, because the higher level hunters all join guilds, and so the association has like almost like a mini guild, and they just handle like D and E rank gates because the guilds don't want to do it because they don't want to go lower than like a C rank. And then we find out you have to be a guild, you have to beat like 20 C rank gates or something like that. So anyway, so he's just doing his quests every day for like several days. He's getting stronger and stronger, and then he's getting like these random items. And at some point, he gets a key, and he wants to use the key because it opens like it's like a dungeon key, and he wants to figure out what's going on with that. So he like checks himself out of the hospital, and then he goes and he finds this dungeon, and he goes inside, and then there's like a wolf, and he kills the wolf, and he gets like a level after he kills a couple wolves, and then he gets like a title that's like wolf killer, and he's like, awesome, this is fucking sweet. So then he just grinds out here. There's like 3 levels to this dungeon, so he grinds out in the first level, a couple of levels. He gets like level like 15, and every time he gains a level, he gets like 1 point in all his stats, and then he gets items, and then he like opens up a shop menu in like his menu thingy, and he's getting like. He gets like random items he can sell for gold, but gold can only be used like in the shop. It's like this whole side thing. And then he's like, all right, well, before I leave this place, I better... Oh, and he finds a teleportation stone, which when he enters the dungeon, it's like you can't leave until you defeat the boss or use a teleportation stone. So he's like, okay, well, I got this in case I need it. So he's like, all right, well, let's check out this boss. So, and at this point, he's been because of all the daily quests and everything, all his skills are like level 25, and then strength is at like 45 or something. So he finds the big gate, the big door to the boss, and oh, so he heads into the gate, and he fights like a big snake monster, and he has to use like all his skills. Oh, he has like a dash skill from like running away from the sand dune monsters, and then he has like a recovery skill he got from like surviving the trial originally, and then he has like another skill. I'm trying to remember what it is. Anyway, so he's got these skills which are nice too. So anyway, he fights off this snake monster boss, beats him, gets like a sweet dagger that like poisons and paralyzes people. It's like a C rank level item, and then he also gets this A rank level like poison, so he can poison himself, and it makes him like really strong defensively, but takes away permanently like his strength. So several days, he completes the dungeon and it's all successful. So several days later, he's really bugged because he's doing quests. He needs to find like work so he can pay like real life money, like pay his rent and stuff. Like he has to pay rent from like the previous month, and he's like, man, I'm like broke. I don't have any money to even like pay for food, and no more instance keys. So that's unfortunate. But then he gets an urgent call for a guild that like, so you have to have to go into like a C rank dungeon or whatever. To go into certain dungeons from the association, you have to have like your strike team or your guild. You have to have 10 members, I think is what it is. And so there's every now and then there'll be like an urgent call for like to fill the quota of like the 10 members. And then oftentimes, like the extra members will just be like hanging out because you have to have so many to get approval to like access the gate to go inside and do stuff. So he's like, oh, okay, cool, this will be easy money. So he shows up, and there's him and another guy, and the other guy has like super fancy equipment, and he's like a D rank hunter. And the money they promised him is enough for like 2 months or like a whole month for food and everything. And he's like, all right, cool. But when he gets there, because his perception is so high at this juncture, he notices that these guys are kind of like fucktards. And that, I think they're going to be fucked, or there's some like shady business going on. But you know what? At this point, I'm so strong, I feel pretty confident in my own abilities, so I'm not too concerned about it. So they all enter the gate, and then him and the other guy are just kind of supposed to hang out, and then Jin, because he's an E-rank hunter, has no abilities, he's not going to get a share of the profits. He just gets like the initial money, while the other guy is going to get a share of the profits, because otherwise it's all like D and C rank hunters. So they fight some bugs. And then eventually they find this spider that's kind of like passed out because it's been gorging itself in all these bugs. And then at this point, the group leader, Tong or whatever, he gets like super sketchy. And they're like, oh, hey, we want to get these mana crystals in here. They're going to be worth a lot, but we got to like blow them up. And like, hey, where's the bombs or whatever? And then the guy's like, oh, man, I left them in the truck. And it's like, oh, you're an asshole. Why'd you forget that? All right, you two stay here and just watch the spider. And we're going to go get those and come back. And then as they like meander out of there, they like blow up part of the dungeon so that it collapses and traps Jin and his homie in there by themselves, and it kind of wakens up the spider. And the guy's like, oh shit, we're fucked. And Jin's like, yawn, whatever. It's he kicks the shit out of the spider. He has to use some of his like abilities, but he takes care of that pretty easily. And then the guy's like, holy shit, what happened? He's like, hey man, those guys are fucktards. They're gonna like, they betrayed us, and like, don't trust them. Anyway, so he gets like the items from the spider because he killed it, and then the group like mines their way back in or blows their way back in. Is like, holy shit, you guys are still alive, and you killed the spider. How the fuck did that happen? Like, you're a D rank and you're an E rank, and Jin just is like, whatever, fuck you. And they're like, oh well, whatever. We're just gonna kill you and take all that fancy, and we're just gonna kill you anyway because fuck you. And then they're like, hey, we looked you up while we were out there. You can join us, like talking to the sidekick character, the other guy who was with Jin. And it's like, your dad is like super rich, and like, if you can side with us and join our guild and something, whatever. And then the guy is like strong morals, and he's like, no, fuck you guys. You tried to kill me. And they're like, all right, well, we're just going to kill Jin anyway, and we're going to knock you out and drag you back and ransom you back to your dad, so whatever. And then Jin's like, you really want to do this? And they're like, yeah, fuck you. What are you going to do about it? And he's like, all right. If you want to do this, let's do it. And so he taunts them a little bit, and then he gets a quest. And the quest is like, kill all these 8 motherfuckers. And he's like, hells yes. And then he beats the shit out of them. He beats them so hard. Fucks them up real good. And so then once, they clear that out, and they go out, and then they're being like interrogated. And it's like, well, you're an E rank who's a piece of shit, and you're a D rank who's never been on a raid before. So clearly, when you guys say the dungeon just killed them because YOLO, that happens and shit, that's obviously what happened, because there's no way you two could have killed them. It's impossible. And he's like, yeah, we're so dumb and bad. And so they leave. And then the other character, is like, hey, I'm gonna give you all like the crescent stones or whatever, the rune stones that you sell for money, because I don't need it because I'm super wealthy and I have a deal for you. And Jin's like, cool, thanks, buddy. So anyway, he celebrates all the money and all that stuff, and he because now the money that he got from the guy that he earned and all the other monies and everything else, it's like things are looking real up. Like he's got tons of money to like survive for the next several months, pay rent and all that stuff. Anyway, a few days later, the homie calls him up and is like, hey, you want to get coffee? And Jin's like, I don't know, man, something. And he's trying to figure out, because the guy's like, I'm going to give you money, and like, I want to go on some more raids with you. And Jin's like, I don't know, that doesn't sound like a good idea. And he doesn't, because part of the reason he doesn't want anyone to know about his secret identity, essentially, that he's super strong. And everyone just thinks he's reawakened, including this guy, who's like, oh no, man, I swear to like all that is holy in the world, I will not tell anybody about your situation. And he's like, all right, cool, I'm going to go. And he's like, no, please. And then Jin's like, just tell me honestly, like, what the fuck, why do you want my help? And he's like, because you're super strong. It's like, yeah, but you don't need the money and this, and like, what's going on? And then he realizes that this guy wants to be a guild master. And then he explains this whole thing where his dad owns this like construction company, and he's trying to start a guild so the guild can give prestige and like, make the apartments that he builds like be more secure because they have their own private guild and whatever. And that he's concerned that his dad's going to hire like an S rank or A rank and pay him a ton of money, and then they can usurp his dad's authority. But if he's in charge as the D rank, he can hire like a S rank guy to be his like assistant, and that way he can't usurp, because like the guild leader has like just as much sway as like the sponsor or some bullshit or something. I don't know, it's some corporate Korean stuff that I don't quite understand. Anyway, but before he can start a guild and become a guild leader, he has to complete 20 raids, and so he needs Jin to help him do that. And Jin's like, well, I'll only do that if it's just the two of us going in these things. And you're really going to pay for like 8 other people just to stand around and fuck all? And he's like, yeah, I got plenty of money, I'm super rich. And he's like, okay. So he finally decides to do it. And then later on in the day, Jin is like, he finishes up his like daily push-up, his daily like one punch man routine. And then he's like, he notices that he actually did like 111 push-ups. And he's like, oh, it went over 100. That's weird. I wonder how high we'll go. So he just push-ups to get to 200, and then it max. And then he maxes everything else out. And because he does that, he gets a bonus mysterious reward. And the bonus mysterious rewards are like, do you want a cursed reward or do you want a heavenly reward? And he's like, cursed reward. And the cursed reward is something you need, and the bonus reward is something you want. And he's like, well, I want what I want. And it's like, here's the key to the Demon Lord's castle. And he's like, hells yeah. So he heads to that dungeon and opens up the Demon Castle. And this time, it's not like, hey, you can't leave. It's like, oh yeah, you can leave whatever you want. Fuck it. And he immediately runs into a Cerebus, and the Cerebus is mean as shit. But thank goodness Jin has like that animal killing skill he got from killing wolves earlier, and his like dash ability and stuff. So he's able to kill the Cerebus, and he gets a choker, like a neck item that gives him like a lot more agility and perception, like 30 more, which is a lot. And he's like, sweet. And when he equips items from like this menu from this world, from like the player side, they just like instantly equip and give him bonuses without actually like showing up on his body, and he was concerned about that obviously because he didn't want to wear like a dog collar. So that's great, and he's like, all right, I definitely need to get stronger before I push further into this place, because that guy almost murdered me, and the last thing I want to, I'm a survivor, and that's my main objective is to not be killed. A few days later, he bumps into Sun. Remember Sun from all the way back in chapter 3, I think. He just at the grocery store shopping, and then Sun's like, hey, what's up, man? Oh, your leg's better. That's crazy. And he's like, yeah, the association paid a lot of money. And he's like, yeah, like some S-rank healers can definitely heal limbs and shit, so that must be what's going on. And he's like, yeah, for sure, that's what's going on or something. Anyway, they're just chit-chatting about stuff, and he's like, hey, Judy, like, really misses you. You should contact her. She was asking about you. And then we find out this like way earlier. Jin like lost his cell phone where the association can call him, so they haven't called him. And then he had a missed call because he was doing like the gates by himself situation. And he's like, if you miss too many of these, association like boots you out and doesn't call you anymore. And so he hears Sun being called for the thing, and because his perception's so high, he can hear everything on the phone, which is good because he wants to go. So he tags along, and Sun's kind of like, oh man, I don't know if you should come. It's like a D rank something. He's like, no, bro, it'll be cool, whatever. So they show up. And there's this B rank guy who's like a supervisor of criminals. And so then we learn that there's a whole criminal hunter system where they go to prison because they did bad things like rape or kill or murder or whatever. But that they can earn like leniency by doing these gates for the association, because the association doesn't always have enough people. And so they like supplement. And then they always have like a higher rank, stronger hunter, like this B rank guy who's taking care of them. And like the idea is that like it would take 10 C rank hunters to beat your average like B rank hunter. I guess that power difference is like exponential every level, I guess. Anyway, so there's these 3 criminals, and there's this guy, and then And then there's Mr. Kim. He's there, that asshole, and some other guy. Don't worry, Mr. Kim gets his comeuppance pretty soon. Anyway, Jin gets a really bad feeling, but then Judy runs up and gives him a big hug, and she's like, "Oh, I missed you. Where happened to our date? Blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Oh yeah. Well, let's head in here." So they all head in there as a big group. The 3 prisoners, the B rank, Soon, Jui, Kim, and like some other asshole. And they're just killing goblins, and everything's going well. And Jin's just kind of hanging back and like kind of like pretend like being like, "Oh, goblins! Oh no, I'll just kill 1 or 2 here and there." And things are going pretty well. And they get to like a 3-way split. And so the guy with the prisoners goes one way, Kim and the other guy go the other way, and then Jin and Soon and Judy go the way towards the boss, because Jin's able to sense that because of his perception so high. And while they're doing that, they hear a scream, and so they run back and they find the prisoners dead. And the B rank guy is like, "Oh ho, you ready to die, motherfuckers?" Or no, at first he's like, "Oh no, the prisoners attacked me and there was a monster and help, I need help." And then Judy goes up to like help him, but then he goes to like strangle her and kill her. But then Jin, who was like detecting all this and seeing stuff, he stops her from being hurt and is like, "Fuck you." And the guy's like, "Whatever." And so they fight a little bit, and they seem pretty evenly matched. With Sun and Jui are like, well, everyone's kind of shocked. And then we learn more about this guy. So he's an asshole who's a murderer, and he took this job specifically because he likes killing human beings. So it's like an excuse to like kill these prisoners, which no one gives a fuck about, right? So he can kill them and be like, "Oh, the dungeon, I'm really bad at protecting them from dungeon stuff. Oh no, what am I gonna do?" Anyway, so there's this old man who pays him like millions of won or whatever to kill one of the prisoners that he's over, because he raped his like daughter, and then the daughter took her own life, and then the wife got like hospitalized in a coma in the hospital because the daughter took her own life, and it's like a really tragic time. And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. I love killing people. I absolutely want to do that. So this guy's like doing a good thing, but not because he's a good guy. He's an asshole. Anyway, so then Jin and him have like some back and forth conversation for a little bit, and he tells him all that stuff, and then Jin's like, "Whatever, you're still an asshole, so go fuck yourself." And then they fight some more, and this guy is like an assassin class or something. I don't think he's an official class, but he has a stealth skill that he can turn invisible completely for like a few seconds. But Jin's perception is so high, it's like, fuck that, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so he uses that, and then at some point, Jin like taunts him enough to get like a quest activated, and he's like, "All right, fucking quest, hell yeah." So then he kills this guy, kills him real good, and then when he's searching through like his goodies, he finds like a rune orb, and the rune orb lets you use skills from other people. But first, before he does like the usual like role-playing game, like search the body for items that I want, he sends Jui and Soon back. He's like, "You guys should head out of here. I'll be there in a minute." And they're like, yeah. And because they know definitely something's up, because like, how the fuck did this weakest of all hunters in all of like the world kill this B rank, which would take like 3 C ranks, and like, holy shit. And so they leave, and then he finds this rune orb, and he's like, "Hell yeah, stealth skill, fan-fucking-tastic." And he gets some other goodies, and then he goes and just kills the boss real quick. He's like, "Fuck you." Before he does that, though, he runs into the rapist, and the rapist is like, "Oh, help me, that guy was an asshole, and he was going to torture me after he killed me, like, Mr. Kim's dead, and everyone else is dead. And he was going to torture me before he killed me, and yada yada." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you really raped that girl, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I don't deserve this." And he's like, "Yeah, fuck you." So he picks him up and tosses him into like a den of hobgoblins, and they murder him real good. And then Jin uses the distraction to go kill the Hobgoblin King, and he beats them, and then he like thinks about some stuff, and then he heads out. And when he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to admit that I'm like reawakened," because they're gonna be like, "How the fuck did you kill this guy?" or all this stuff, and he's, how'd you defeat this by yourself? And so he pops out, and then someone there is like, "Did you just kill that guy by yourself?" And then Soon's like, "No, I did," because he was doing all this shady shit. And they're like, "How could you? You're a C rank hunter. You can't kill him." And he's like, "Judy helped me because she's a B rank." And they're like, "Oh, a B rank and a C rank. Yeah, that could overpower a B rank. That makes sense." And everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. and Jin's like talking to Soon later, and he's like, why did you say that?" And he's like, "I don't know what the reason you're keeping this secret, but like, I owe you my life, so like, I will never betray you." And then Judy's like, "He owe me a date still, asshole." And he's like, yeah, I'll get you, girl. So that's precious. And then that's when he gets a text from the nurse that wants his dick. And he's like, "Nah, bitch, I'm good." All right, so then we take like a side trip to America, so that Tong guy who was an asshole who tried to kill Jin like 3 times and got his ass handed to him. He has a brother out in America who's like, I don't know, an A or S rank hunter. I didn't catch. But he finds out about Tung's death, and he's super pissed. He's like, how the fuck did that happen? And so then he looks into like the guys who survived, the D&E rank hunter, and he's like, one of these guys, there's some shady shit here. These guys, there's no way they could have killed him. Like, why did they survive and Tung died or whatever? So he gets super angry. And then, you know, he tells his bosses, he's like, hey, I got to go to Korea for my brother's funeral. And they're like, well, you already have scheduled like gates. And he's like, all right. After that, I'm going to take like 2 or 3 weeks and go do that. And they're like, okay, sounds good. And he's like, I'm going to go to Korea and kill some fools. The book wraps up with Jin and his homie, the rich guy. They're putting a crew together, and then they bust through some sea level gates like day after day after day. And then at some point, the White Tiger clan, who's like one of the top 3 clans in all of South Korea, they're like, who the fuck is taking all these C rank gates in our territory that we can't train up new people? And they're like, oh, this guy who's like the son of the rich guy and some E rank adventurer, and they're like, we gotta go check that out because he's definitely reawakened. And dun dun dun, that's the end of book 1 of Solo Leveling. And there's like 11 books, and I have at least the first 8, I think. But this book was awesome. Like, I didn't realize it, but I guess there's an anime adaptation and a comic, like a manhwa, which is like Korean manga. So there's like a Korean comic that's, I think, has been translated. I mean, this is a light novel that I'm reading. And then I guess there's an anime that I don't want to watch because this book is written so well. It's so fast and fun, and there's interesting stuff. So we'll see if it slows down. But I'm liking it so far. It's pretty fucking good. So highly recommend Solo Leveling, Volume 1 at least. The whole thing was like fantastically done. And I'm super excited to continue reading, see what's going to happen to our homie Jin and whatever else. But yeah, there you go. Solo Leveling, Volume 1. Excellent. And go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment. And I will catch you guys later. Bye.